1820. And they hit our country, came straight from the Caribbean Sea and getting into San Juan River, which is a natural bridge that connects the Caribbean Sea with the third largest lake of the continent, named Lake Nicaragua, which by the way is a mispronunciation because the original name of this one is Cocibolca, which means Quetzalcoatl, the hybrid of a quetzal and a snake, which is very important in the Mayan culture, right? So the Spaniards didn't know how to pronounce it, and they changed the name. By the way, our country's name in the Nahuatl language is Nicanahuac, which means until here we coming from Anahuac. Back in Mexico, in the Mexican Valley, there was a community, a tribe named Anahuac, and they were just relegated by the Mayans and the Aztecs, and there was a prophecy. They were coming down south looking for the promised land, which was a place with two mountains of fire, volcanoes, surrounded by water. In this case, is Ometepe, which means twin hills. Ome is hills, sorry, two, and Tepe is hills. So it's quite easy. In our names, proper names of our country, we have a lot of indigenous words. So that's a simple Managua, Solo plan, so I will explain a little bit more about this. But today we are going to focus on
city tours, Guacamayos, you know, Shoto,
which is mainly the 60% of our country living at the west coast of the Pacific. It's flat, and there's a dry tropical forest in this area of the country, so it's quite hot the whole year. In the central part, we have 30% of our population, and there's a lot of mountains, and the weather gets a little bit cooler because we have a transition between dry tropical forest and cloud forest. And at the east coast of this area, we have a transition of the cloud forest and rainforest. So the Caribbean is 100% rainforest, and it's the main reason why we have only 10% of our population living around there. So what does it really mean? That all the time is raining, and the main roads that are connecting with the rest of the country are unpaved roads. So it's really hard to reach this area. So according to the statistics, this is one of the poorest areas of our country if we talk about economy, and one of the richest if we are talking about culture. The main reason? Racial mix. Pirates, European conquerors, indigenous, and Afro that were brought as slaves to Nicaragua are the main reason why in this place you can easily find someone that speaks 5 languages or 2 languages and 3 dialects because of the reputation and the racial mix that we have over there. So now we're going to make a huge throwback back in the time when we had indigenous civilizations living in our country, and I will explain the most remarkable ones. But first, take a look at that painting. It shows right there. It's named Los Dos Andinos, and it's a joke of art of a German artist named Mike Alfitz. It was painted back in 1984, and it's looking a little bit different than the way it used to look like. And in the first part, we have the word Sandino Vive at the right side. That's representing the revolutionary hero of the 1920s and 30s that he used to fight against the Marine Force of the United States. And in part B, we have democracy. That's representing the Sandinistas, the revolutionary movement that was based on their ideas in the Cuban Revolution, the Sandinist Revolution back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And they are still recognized by the people. So you can notice that Uncle Sam is below Sandino's foot at the right side because it's representing the Marine Corps. And at the left side is below his foot Anastasio Somoza Debayle, the last of the 3 Somoza dictators that we had for 43 years ago. So let's go. Markers of the revolution. Previously this corner used to be one of the biggest hardware stores of the city, but it got bombed in the battle of the Sandinistas against the National Guard. You can notice that there's a guy that looks like a Western cowboy, and it has the same shape The guy right there. That's Sandino. Augusto Calderon Sandino. And then we have a transition with his name, which is Rigoberto Lopez Perez. Remember this name because there's an interesting thing about the Somozas and Rigoberto Lopez Perez, right? Some indigenous symbols representing the indigenous heritage that we have in our country. There were 5 main civilizations that settled down in Nicaragua after the Anahuac.
City tours, guacamayos, León, Nicaragua.
The last one from South Colombia, Ecuador, Venezuela. So Nicaragua is a transition point. Most of them settled down at the Pacific coast. This was the way that they just, the Spaniards said that they discovered our country because Christopher Columbus ported accidentally in 1502 at Puerto o Cabo Gracias a Dios, thanks God Cape, which is at the northeast side of our country. It is a limit between Honduras and Nicaragua. 22 years later, they sent some explorers, and the main founder of the cities was Francisco Hernandez de Córdoba. That's why our currency is named like that, Córdoba, because of the main founder of the cities. By the way, the city used to be located in a different point, back in the 1500s until 1610, which is over here. This is Lake Managua, which is 30 kilometers away from this place. And the city was founded right at the shore of the lake. And they stayed there until 1610. There were 3 main reasons why they moved. The most important one, eruptions of Momotombo volcano. There were some earthquakes after the eruptions, and there were some political conflicts within the Spaniard community. They were killing themselves. So people thought that the city was free. They were looking for a place to refound the capital of the province of Nicaragua. And they elected this exact area, which is over here. The main reason? Indigenous, the ones that used to live here, were sutiabas, which means the small shells near the river. In this case, there's a river named Chiquito that connects and flows with the Pacific coast, Las Peñitas and Poneloy. Number 2, fertile soil, because we have a lot of volcanoes surrounding this area of the country. So they were cultivating almost everything that might grow up with this kind of weather. And number 3, in this case, is water resources. We used to have Pochote River at the north side and Chiquito River at the south side. Both rivers are looking way different than the way they used to look like, but there's people working hard in order to make it look better, right? So over here we have some recreation of the indigenous symbols and instruments that they used to fight the Spaniards. And that's why we have some footprints. There's some drop weapons. Representation of the most remarkable things of the Spaniard conquest. Language, traditions, gastronomy, and religion. Nicaragua is a country that is still remaining Catholic in most of the places. Currently we have around 47% of Catholics. We have 30% of some other people that practice some other Christian denomination, and 22% of people that is no longer practicing a religion, but that they are non-believers. It's a huge difference if we consider the facts or the statistics of 40 or 30 years ago. But it's something that we are really proud of, is our Catholic heritage. The main reason, in this part of the country, the northwest side, we have almost 10% of the Catholic community. And every time there's a celebration, we have a lot of people gathering. I will explain you some things related with the lady of this city, which is the Lady of the Mercy, or La Merced. And it's a big thing every September the 24th. right? And Nicaragua got independent from Spain in 1821.
Oh, it's clean there.
Oh, that's the way you should know. Well, what we have here, okay, Nicaragua got its independence in 1821, but in the middle of the 1850s, there's a political conflict that affected our country, and it's the beef between Leon and Grenada. Do we have someone here that have been to Grenada already? Yes, you. What about you? Okay, what do you think about that place? Is it nice enough? Can you relate it from the city to the place? Plus, we had that the guys from Leon wanted to get an extension or annexion to the Mexican government, because after Nicaragua, Honduras, El Salvador, Costa Rica, and Guatemala got independent from Spain in 1821, we got administrated by Mexico for 2 years. So there's a background. And the Grenadians were trying to be an independent republic. But there's another thing that happened, and it's a phenomenon that I live in California. But it was a long journey. It was expensive, and it was a little bit dangerous because of the native Indians that used to live in the central part of the country. So they were looking for alternative ways to cross the transit. And there's Nicaragua. Remember that it's connected to the Caribbean, the lake by the river named San Juan. Most of the people were just crossing this history, which is 17 kilometers, 12 miles away from the coast to coast. So a lot of Americans crossed the nation, and after 1855, there's a man named William Walker that ported in Nicaragua and got very famous because he had been the only foreigner president that we had in our history. So how did he turn as the president of Nicaragua, a foreigner? At the beginning, he was trying to support the people from Leon, but there was a rich man named Cornelius Vanderbilt, which was the owner of the boats that were moving the people all the way east or west to San Juan del Sur, where they've been picking up steamships to go up. So what happened with this? He got in an agreement with Vanderbilt, and he started to support the people from Grenada. They defeated the people from Leon, but then he betrayed everybody, and he named as the president. And there's when Leon and Grenada got together at least once in our history.
He named himself president?
Well, there was a sort of political support, but it was mainly like a sort of taking the control.
Yeah.
So when it happened, Walker approved slavery when it was already abolished. He gave huge amounts of acres of land to people from the United States to cultivate coffee and cacao in the north central part of the country. And the worst of the worst is that he wanted to connect the administration of the Confederation with Nicaragua. So we were going to be a colony, and the Grenadians were in disagreement with this. So they got together and they defeated Walker, and he left the country in 1857. When he realized that he was about to lose the fight, he set fire to the whole city of Grenada. So what happened? There's a reconstruction of the city in Grenada, and that's why it's looking quite newer than Leon, in spite of it had been placed in the same place for more than almost 500 years. So it's incredibly amazing. We have a transition after this war, and from 1857 to 1904, we have the biggest break of Nicaragua without the war. It was just peace, everybody was following the rules. But there's a conflict, which is Nicaragua against the United States. The main reason, the construction of a canal that was expected to be built by the administration of Jose Santos Zelaya, a very popular president because of his liberal policies and because of his mustache. So the thing is that Zelaya was looking forward to split our country all this way down, over here, starting here and just going through the lake and finishing in San Juan del Sur. But the Americans wanted to build a canal in Nicaragua as well. Remember that the Panama Canal at the beginning was supported by the French, but they couldn't afford the whole project, so they took that project. The thing is that we have a lot of marine troops or ports porting in Nicaragua to fight the president. After the president dropped out, we have Marines leaving for 27 years, 1904, 1933. And in that part of our history is when Sandino got famous, because he got those ideas of the Mexican Revolution and he was trying to fight the Marines. So it's like the symbol of freedom and resistance against an empire. Sandino was a man that invented or promoted the wars of guerrillas in Nicaragua. And then in the 80s, these guerrillas were something that were affecting our country very much. You're going to understand why. Sadly, Sandino was assassinated by the first Somoza in 1934. And after this happened, Somoza, with a lot of American political support and military support, was named as the president 2 years later. So he was the president for 20 years in a row, 1936, 1956. And in those 20 years, Nicaragua was the richest country in Central America. We were producing a lot of crops, but there was a lot of people, illiterated people, almost 30% of the campesinos. So there was a lot of disadvantage and a lot of people complaining about this. So do you remember Rigoberto Lopez Perez, the guy that is placed just right there? Well, he was a guy that just had the initiative to kill the Somoza president in 1956, September the 21st. So that's why we have that revolver and that letter representing the assassination of the president at the re-election party with Rigoberto dressed up as a waiter. So after the father was assassinated, we have the oldest child placed as the president and the youngest as the general of the National Guard. The second guy was named Luis Somoza, also known as Luis el Bueno, the good Luis, because some people say that he was softer than his father, related with the oppression of the people, and he was trying to fix some things related with the administration and the support for everybody. But sadly, Luis administrated the country for 7 years, 1956, 1963. In the middle of the administration of Somoza II, we had a massacre that happened on July the 23rd. So that's why we have this shield, this flag representing the national republic. Some students were marching against the government and 4 of them were shot and died, but more than 50 people got forward. So when these things happened, we had a lot of people basing their ideas of revolution in the revolution of Fidel Castro that happened in the same year, 1959. And a couple of years later, we have the founding of the revolutionary movement that maybe you are related with, the Sandinistas. So the red and black flag represents the same flag that Castro used in the Cuban Revolution, and the same one that Sandino used back in the 30s. It's an international symbol of revolution. The red color represents fight and blood, the black one represents death and sorrow. The capital letters in the flag are the name of the political party that is currently governing our country. Frente Sandinista de Liberación Nacional. Not really a copy, it's like a sign. Something that all people use. If we translate it to English, it might be like Sandinista Front of National Liberation, something like that. And they were mainly communists and socialists. All these ideas of Marx, Lenin, Castro were just gathered in this movement and they were fighting against Moses and an intellectual. So these last, that book are representing the main founder of the party, Carlos Fonseca, a philosophy professor of the university. With a lot of support from the students and the professors and campesinos and rich people that wasn't disagreeing with the government, they started to work in order to copy it. Sadly, in the 63, the second Somoza died because of a heart attack. That's the official version. But there's an alternative one. A lot of tour guides and even historians says that it's the real one. And it's that his brother poisoned him because he wanted to suffer. He wanted to take the administration of the country. And his brother is the man that is placed in the second part of the Dos Salinos game. Just right there, Anastasio Somoza Devalle. He was the president from 1963 to in 1979. The last years of the Somozas were administered by this evil man, which in the 63 approached the alibi that JFK died because of communism, and he blamed the Sandinistas in this country, and it was the perfect excuse to try to exterminate. So in the 60s they almost disappeared. In the 70s they reorganized. They started to make it in a different way, with more expression. And when this guy died in the 76, everything changed. Because we have the support of the Cubans, and we have the support of these militias to fight the Somozas. There's a change in the American administration that affected the Somozas administration, and it's the election of Jimmy Carter as the president in 1976. So he took the control in the 77, and he was no longer supporting the Somozas. The biggest friend of this dictatorship was the United States. So when they got enough bullets and equipment, they got defeated by the people. So that's why we have this tank representing the National Guard, those bombs and those bullets representing the Sandinistas. A huge difference, but the union of the people was stronger than the equipment, and they destroyed the guys. In 1979, these guys left, and after this happened, we have remodeling or modifying of our political system. We have 5 years without the president. We have like 5 people working together as a cabinet, while we have the construction of the new political constitution of Nicaragua. By the way, I have a question for you, amigos. It's about this. This worksheet. What does it look like? We'll try to get a better person.
Yeah, I think it hangs. It's not too Yeah, it's in there.
You have spoiled this part of it.
It actually.
I didn't realize it was a recording.
I really like that. I really like that you have like a small background in power history. That's amazing. And that's correct. That's representing the statue of Somoza riding a horse. That statue was placed at the National Baseball Stadium in Managua back in the 57 when this guy, 1 year later after this guy died, they just placed the statue. And there's a recreation of this statue at the art gallery of the city. The ones that haven't been there, I recommend you to take a look at that place.
Sabe bastante.
The second Somoza died in 1980 when